Hello, sorry about that. I'll explain what happened in just a minute when people log back on. Hopefully they see this. Right in the middle of a very good rant, too. What happened to the other feed? What happened to the other feed? Well, the truth is, I don't think it was YouTube or Google censoring me, and it wasn't internet. I don't want to throw her under the bus, but my sweet, sweet grandmother called me, and I didn't answer, and she called me again, and it just kicked me off of the app. So I had to restart. Thanks for logging back on. Hello from Nevada. Hi, Tim. Hello, everyone. We're just gonna give everyone just a sec to get back on. And then I'll continue my rant, pick it up from where I stopped. No, my grandma's a sweet, sweet lady. Oh, your guys' comments. Okay, we'll give you, of course, yeah, of course I'm coming back. Thanks for getting on the second one, I appreciate it. We'll give it just about 30 more seconds because people are still transferring over. Hi from Florida, hello. From Allentown, Pennsylvania, hello. Yes, I'm back. All right, just a couple more seconds. Yes, I do love my grandma. She is a national treasure, and I'm going to call her back as soon as we're done here. Saw her about an hour ago. All right, are we ready to get back into it? Okay. So the question that we were answering at the time was, what happened? Why didn't Trump win in the landslide that I predicted 7-8 months ago? How did Democrats manage to, I don't want to say win the election, it's not certified yet, we don't know yet. How did Democrats manage to compete at this level when their candidate hung out in his basement all the time? What happened? And the answer to that, I believe, what happened was COVID. And I'm not just talking about the virus itself. I'm talking about the politics of the virus, the policies forced on us by our elected representatives. And what I said before is our elected representatives ignored the science from the very beginning. If you followed along the science, what we knew about viruses, what we knew about infectious diseases, what we knew about transmission, what we knew about treatment of SARS-type viruses, what we know about herd immunity, what we know about, all of the stuff related to COVID at the very beginning, if you made an effort to follow along, you would not have fallen for the policies that our elected representatives forced on us. And yet, even though they had a responsibility to do their research before they shut down our businesses, forced us to stay home, masked us, all of these different things, you wouldn't have fallen for that had you known the truth. And I'm talking about America in general. So the politicians had a responsibility to know these things, and they either willfully refused to educate themselves, or more likely what they did is they stoked fear in people in order to render people hysterical, because when people are hysterical with fear, they are very compliant, they are very willing to give up their liberty in exchange for a promise of temporary security or safety. So our politicians lied about the science of voting in person. They told us it was dangerous, this was going to be a super spreader event, that it was putting people's lives at risk just to go cast your ballot in person, even though we knew as early as April in Wisconsin primaries that if you social distanced, if you sanitized stuff, the election in Wisconsin was not a significant vector of transmission for COVID-19. We knew that in April, and yet what did Democrats do? What did they do? They kept telling people to be fearful. They kept telling people it wasn't safe in order to push through universal mail-in ballots. They knew what they were doing. Democrats knew what they were doing. They might be immoral, they might not share our principles, they're not stupid when it comes to politicking, and they out-politicked us. That's one of the major things that happens. And why does that make a difference? Because a lot of the Democratic electorate, their voting electorate, won't turn out to vote on election day. They won't take the time to go and cast their ballot. But if they're sent a ballot without having requested one, without having to take any responsibility for it, they're just sent one, and then they're given several weeks before they have to mail it back, then yeah, you're going to get a lot of votes that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten. Democrats know this. That's why they pushed this policy, and they exploited your fear and used COVID to put us in this situation. We warned them when they started talking about universal mail-in ballots in the summer. We warned them about the vulnerabilities, the human error, whether it was the post office, whether, the vulnerabilities to fraud, whether it's the lack of postage, or, all the different examples that I talked about a minute ago. We warned them this would happen, and they didn't care. They knew that we would be in a situation exactly like we're in, and they didn't care because they thought that they'd get more votes, enough votes maybe, to put them in the White House, regardless of whether it disenfranchised legal voters by diluting and spoiling legal voters' votes with fraud. So that's what happened. That is what happened. We also, of course, have the mainstream media who's demonized President Trump for the past 4 or 5 years. We have polls. I mean, the career of the pollsters should be completely over, completely done. The Washington Post, for example, the week before the election reported that Biden had a 17-point lead over Trump in Wisconsin. In Ohio, a Quinnipiac poll had Biden up by 4. Dave Wasserman predicted the Democrats would gain between 10 and 15 House seats. As of right now, the Democrats are losing 6 of them. Fox News predicted somewhat the same thing, that Democrats would pick up 5 House seats. Not one poll, by the way, dating all the way back to February, and you can look on Real Clear Politics for the lineup of these polls, predicted Susan Collins winning. She won by a long shot against Sarah Gideon in Maine. So we have the false narrative from the polls claiming that Trump didn't have a chance. We have the demonization of not only President Trump, but all his policies and all his supporters, conservatives in general, by the mainstream media for years and years. And we have the Democrats themselves this year never letting a crisis go to waste, exploiting people's fear about COVID, feeding that fear in order to usher in mail-in voting. So what happened is we were out-politicked by dirty politicians. So that's the second question. The third question is a hypothetical. And this is a hypothetical that I'm somewhat hesitant to cover because I don't want to, the election hasn't been certified yet. We don't know who won yet, and I don't want people, I don't want to pretend one way or the other. But the reason I'm going to answer this question is because Biden claims he has a mandate. He says he has a mandate on climate change, he has a mandate on unity, he has a mandate on healing, blah, blah, blah. So does Biden have a mandate? The answer to that is that's the most ridiculous claim I have ever heard, and here is why. How on earth does Biden think he has a mandate? Listen to these facts. When the Republican Party, the GOP, probably held the Senate, we'll know, in Georgia, the Republican Party picked up House seats. The Republican Party held state legislatures that they were already in control of, lost none. In fact, the Republican Party flipped a Democratic state legislature. Democratic House speakers lost their races in very far left Vermont and Rhode Island. Over 70 million Americans voted for Donald Trump, and President Trump grew support of minority voters. And just so you know what these numbers mean, these even come, this is from an exit poll from the New York Times and CNN. Can you get 2 more far left media outlets? According to those far left outlets, President Trump got 18% of the votes of black men in our country. I want to give you a little comparison here. Bush in 2000 won 12% of black men's votes. Bush in 2004 won 13% of the vote of black men. McCain in 2008 won 5% of black men. Romney in 2012 won 11% of black men. Trump in 2016 won 13% of black men. And in 2020, he won 18% of black men. That is a significant pickup, In fact, black men isn't the only minority demographic that Trump increased his support from compared to 2016. White women, he increased by 2 points. Black men, and this is a different exit poll, so by 4. Black women by 4. Latino men by 3. Latino women by 3. President Trump won the highest share of the non-white vote at 26% since 1960. Since 1960. I mean, this is an incredible achievement, So when Joe Biden says that he has a mandate, nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing. Far radical leftism was roundly rejected at the polls, up and down the ballot, all over the country this year. The only reason that Biden maybe, possibly will see won was because of dirty politics related to COVID-19. Okay, so just want to get that straight. So then we have Biden and Harris, potential Biden-Harris administration, and all of these left-wing pundits are claiming that Biden and Harris will actually be moderate, that they will not be as far left as Donald Trump accused them. That's wrong. That is absolutely wrong, and here is why. Let me show you the facts. So first of all, Kamala Harris has she, her pronouns in her Twitter bio. Does that sound moderate to you? Does that sound scientific to you? No, it doesn't. The only thing that people are talking about, and when I say people, let me be more specific. The only thing that the mainstream media and radical leftists are talking about when it comes to Kamala Harris is her gender. And let me just tell you, I do not care about Kamala Harris's gender. As a woman, I do not care about Kamala Harris's gender. I care that she wants the crazy Green New Deal. I care that she wants to grab guns. I care that she wants unrestricted abortion up until the moment of birth and wants to force taxpayers to fund it. I care that she wants to abolish private health insurance. Kamala Harris's policies are awful. I do not care about her gender. She is a radical leftist. So here's some other indications of whether Biden and Harris will in fact govern moderately or not. There are reports, unconfirmed, but it came from a consulting firm that works with the Biden camp. So while Biden himself has not announced this is a reliable source, that Biden will revoke President Trump's executive order about critical race theory within the first weeks of being in office, should he win the election. That's a big deal. Critical race theory teaches that white people are inherently racist, there's nothing we can do not to be racist, that everyone is reduced to nothing more than race. Is an evil ideology based in critical theory, which says there is no objective truth, there's only competing narratives. So if that's true, which I believe it is, or I wouldn't have shared it with you, that is nothing a moderate would do. Biden also will potentially appoint the head of one of the largest teachers unions in the nation to the position of education secretary. And this is important. Teachers unions, remember what teachers unions are doing as we speak. They are holding your children's education hostage. They are staging what they call sick outs where teachers boycott teaching until they get radical leftist demands like defund the police and a wealth tax, all in the name of COVID-19 and safety. So will Biden and Harris, if they win the presidency, will they be moderate? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All right. So then we get to Democrats' claim, and this is a party talking point. This is one of those narratives that dribbles down from the top that you know that every mainstream media pundit, every Democratic politician is told to repeat and echo this talking point. Here it is. Democrats claim it is time for unity and it is time for healing. I don't know if you saw the Time magazine cover. The caption on the Time magazine cover says, "A time to heal," and then it has a picture of Biden and Harris in masks. Biden himself says his mandate is decency, kindness, healing, and beating the virus so that we can hug our family members again. This is just unthinkable to me. Here's my question. What is decent about pushing unrestricted abortion? What is healing about peddling false narratives about police-involved shootings in order to spark racial divide in our nation? What makes Biden think that he's God and can just, with, I don't know, at 1 day, 2 days, 3 days later, suddenly defeat the virus? And if he does have that magical power to simply defeat the virus with the snap of fingers, why would he wait this long? Why wouldn't he have done that in March? Actions speak louder than words. Leftists have baselessly called you and me and President Trump and conservatives across the nation baselessly called us evil, racist bigots for the past 4 years. Nonetheless, you and I treated them respectfully, and now they call for unity and for healing and look our way. Let me just say this. If they're sincere in their calls for unity and for healing, then they'll apologize for the way that they've treated us and the false accusations they've hurled at us. If they do not apologize, then they are liars, and they don't care about unity and healing. They're just using it as a way to try to gain support and votes, but it's a farce. And how do we know it's a farce? Well, because the true colors of the Democrats are seeping through their narratives, and this is what I mean. It's funny how the party of unity and healing and tolerance and compassion and justice is making an enemies list, a literal enemies list in an effort to destroy the lives of their political opponents. I don't know if you guys have heard about this. This is not an isolated tweet. This is not one person. There are multiple high-level people in the never-Trumper realm or the Democratic realm, and perhaps it's one and the same, who are compiling lists of conservatives to try to ostracize them from society if they supported Trump. So let's go through a couple of these examples. A Pete Buttigieg staffer by the name of Emily Abrams, and let me pause myself. This is important because Pete Buttigieg is not only on Biden's transition team, Pete Buttigieg is also positioned to be the front runner for either the Veterans Affairs Secretary or the U.S. Ambassador to the UN. So very close to Joe Biden. A Pete Buttigieg for President staffer by the name of Emily Abrams tweeted, this is a quote, "We're launching the Trump Accountability Project to make sure anyone who took a paycheck to help Trump undermine America is held responsible for what they did." What do you think she means by that? Held accountable for what they did? Keeping a list of your political enemies? That's chilling. It's chilling. Think about other times in our history where government officials have kept lists of people for certain behaviors. It's sick. Then we have another Democratic operative named Harry Sevagan say, and this is a quote, "Caitlin Collins just reported White House staff are starting to look for jobs. Employers considering them should know there are consequences for hiring anyone who helped Trump attack American values. Find out how at the Trump Accountability Project." End quote. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez joined in. She said, and I quote, "Is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future? I foresee," she says, "decent probability of many deleted tweets, writings, photos in the future," end quote. This stuff is sick. This is Tor. He says, this is the left. They want you to feel, oh no, that's my comment on it. He's calling for excruciating pain. He said, "I hope that the anxiety and the pain that you're feeling is excruciating." He wants his political opponents to feel excruciating pain. I mean, that's sick. This guy named Ben Masilas, he said, quote, "If you hire someone who remained with the Trump administration after the election, be on notice. You will be held accountable by Midas touch, and we will ensure you are exposed." Then Jennifer Rubin, who says she's a Republican. We all know that that's a lie. This is what she said. "It's not only that Trump has to lose, his enablers have to lose. We have to collectively burn down the Republican Party. We have to level them, because if there are survivors, they will do it again." Survivors? What is she suggesting be done to us? She goes, "Any Republican now promoting rejection of an election or calling not to follow the will of the voters or making baseless allegations of fraud should never serve in office or join a corporate board or find a faculty position or be accepted into polite society. We have a list," she says. "We have a list. These Democrats are making lists of us to try to ostracize us from society, prevent us from finding jobs, prevent us from having a livelihood, prevent us from serving in government, contributing to society, all because we voted for Donald Trump." These are the same people who are calling for unity and for healing, which, of course, calling for unity and for healing from these people is a bunch of BS. So these are some of the questions that I was asked beforehand. Maybe the most important question is, what do we do now? What do we do now besides be factual, be clear-headed, investigate allegations, legitimate allegations of voter fraud, litigate where it's necessary? What do we do now? The answer to this could not be more crystal clear. We must win the Senate. We must win the Senate. Put your time, your energy, your money into electing the Republican senators in Georgia. The future of our free nation. I'm talking about the Supreme Court, free speech, your business, your religious liberty, capitalism, and babies' right to life depend on us winning the Senate. If we can win the Senate, we can stymie Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. If they win the presidency, we can stymie it. If not, then the Democrats will, make no mistake, they will not govern moderately. They will ram through every single radical leftist policy they have discussed over the past 4 years. The Senate runoff that I'm talking about in Georgia happens on January 5th. Senator Loeffler and Senator Perdue, they are in the fight for the life of Republicans in the Senate. We must support them. We must make sure that they are elected with every legal means, and the Georgia state legislature must reconvene, and they must ban mail-in voting before the runoff elections. Call on the Georgia state legislature respectfully but firmly to reconvene and ban that. That's the only way to have a free and fair election, is to make sure that legal votes, every legal vote is counted, and that legal votes are not diluted by voter fraud. So let me just go through what we've talked about. We talked about, is there voter fraud? Is it significant enough to litigate? Is it significant enough to steal the election? We went through the examples of voter fraud because, sure, there's allegations. There's not just allegations, there's evidence of voter fraud, and we should investigate in order to find out the answer to the third question: was it significant enough to flip the election? Then we talked about what happened. Why didn't President Trump win in a landslide like we thought he would 8 months ago? The answer to that: dirty politics, a sheep-like electorate, mass hysteria, out-electioneered as a tactic. The Democrats use this as a tactic to push through mail-in voting. Then we said, does Biden have a mandate? Should he take the Oval Office? The answer to that is no. Of course he doesn't, because Republicans won everywhere else. Republicans won up and down the ballot. People like the policies of the Republican Party. The media was just successful in demonizing Trump to the point where his personality perhaps was rejected, but not his policies. Biden and Harris, will they be moderate? Of course they will not be moderate. Their actions and their words show us that they are not moderate, even to this day. When they claim it's time for unity and healing, is it? Well, it is, but they're not the ones to do it, because they're the ones who have been sparking divide for the past, not just 4 years, but for the past 8 years prior to that, for the past 12 years. And we know this because they're showing their true colors by now making an enemies list. So what do we do about it? We make sure that Republicans hold the Senate. And that's what I've got for you today. The mainstream media will not be honest with you. You can read a mainstream media publication, you can tune in to cable news networks. They have leftist agendas. They won't tell you the truth about these questions. Do your own research. Look at the facts. Don't let the left tell you that you're being a conspiracy theorist. If you're simply saying, well, I see evidence of voter fraud, shouldn't we investigate that? Of course we should. You can be clear-minded and not be a conspiracy theorist. Don't let them insult you or shame you into not protecting the integrity of our election. So as I said, when I started this, we were going to do this a little bit differently today. Instead of having you submit questions right now, we took some questions beforehand. Let me know which way you like better. Do you like asking the questions and having me answer them as we go, or do you like me preparing the questions and answering them in this format? I always read all your comments, so I'm going to go do that now. Look at your comments, and thank you so much for tuning in. God bless.